enough to the hobby that I'm still exploring and deciding what I prefer and what I, don't like, things of that nature. And so I found myself watching a YouTube video by one of the, I don't know, I guess famous or really skilled YouTube painters. Yeah, I think he does some commission work and he has a pretty successful channel. And at any rate, he talked a bit about wet palettes. And wet palettes are a thing I know very little about. I picked one up on Amazon just to get started, and it's fine. It's fine. But I kind of want something a little better, I think. I don't exactly know what better is because that's the only wet palette I've ever had. So I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I don't know. It's somewhere in between. It's probably somewhere in between. Hell, I wouldn't even know what makes a good wet palette good, except for reading opinions or watching opinions for people who know better. Anyway, as a result, I ended up getting this guy, the Army Painter wet palette. It wasn't the best that was reviewed, and it wasn't the worst. It was among the better ones. For a number of reasons, not necessarily material quality or et cetera, but in combination with price point and kind of quality and kind of the experience that professional painter had, this was one of those that he recommended. There was a couple more that were, even more highly recommended, but wasn't ready to spend $70 on a wet palette. I don't have the kind of skill where that would be where I would notice, I think. Maybe someday, but not today. So, I will pick this up. It's unboxing time. Here it is, the Army Painter wet palette. So here's the box. Let's see what we see. Starting to notice that I have the most fun recording unboxing videos than I do of any other kind of video, I think. Maybe it's because it's easy. Maybe it's because I have terminal consumerism. Who knows? The point is, I love new stuff. And I love talking about new stuff. All right, so here's one of the pamphlets that comes in there in the box. It is, what is it? Okay, it's just a catalog of, so it looks like a bit of a mixture, right? A promotion of their products, but also some tips and tricks on how to, enjoy the hobby. So, things you'll need to do the things you need to do. Cool. The Army Painter painting guide. Again, I heard it was a pretty decent guide, like a good beginner guide. So, of course, I completely ignored it. And this will probably be the second time I ignore it. More promotional materials. Hobby products. Full range of stuff that they sell. And here is the palette itself. All right, I wasn't sure what what material it would be. It's plastic, and it has this little band to hold things together. I'm not exactly sure why, unless you're painting on the move, which I don't intend to do. So that's the that's the top of it, and it's embossed. It says the Army Painter. This is, understand it's a place to put your brushes where you kind of are moving around. And the base of said wet palette. Your spongy material goes in there, as well as water and your wet palette paper. All right, and here is where the other stuff is. So this particular box came with, well, read before use, yes. So it came with 2 of these Army Painter wet palette, I guess, what is it, sponges? I don't know exactly what they would be called. Oh, why? Okay, so that, you know what? Stab. Oh, look at this. So this is a lot thinner than the one I'm currently using. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Oh, and it's embossed. I don't know if you can make out that detail. But yeah, it's kind of like, well, not embossed, it's stamped, I guess. Basically, there's the lettering here is pressed into the foam, and it stayed there. So one of these goes in here. You dampen it up, and it's going to be good to go. So there's 2 of them in the box. And I'm not going to count these, but there's supposed to be 50 sheets of paper. Now, this is what I'm hoping will be better than my current wet palette. The paper that I have, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'm kind of suspicious that it might not be great. It feels about as thin as the other stuff, so I can't wait to try this. It's a little smaller than the one that I use right now. Oh, it's gonna still have that curling problem. Once you get this dampened up, it should cooperate. So, really, that's it. I mean, there wasn't supposed to be a ton to this, but there is the new wet palette. Looking forward to using it as soon as I'm resuming painting. Got a lot of stuff going on at work, and I gotta finish that before I can enjoy my holiday break. So, this guy is gonna go unused until I earn my keep. So, hope you enjoyed it. If you're thinking about it, wait. If you're thinking about it, if you're singing about it, if you're thinking about singing about it, there it is, the wet palette. Not a review. I have no idea if this is good or bad. Just here's what's in the box. If it's great, if it sucks, I'll do another one of these and let you guys know. Good night. After I finished recording the Army Painter wet palette unboxing video, I started to use it. I replaced the old one that I had, but my initial observation was kind of weird, and so this isn't a review to add to the unboxing video. This is just kind of commentary. I'm not skilled or experienced enough to be able to give you talk about the nuances of the what's good or bad and what could be done better. That's not my bag, baby. But what I can say is it kind of took me off guard. So I started using it to do some painting projects, and so you can see here is the Army Painter wet palette, and really the very first thing that caught my attention was, and so it's wet. I was gonna do some painting, and I realized that now is the time to talk about this if I was ever going to. The cushion, this thing, it's really, really thin. And so I don't know if you can tell, but that's a pretty thin cushion. It's not something, I mean, it's obvious right out of the bag, but it's not something that struck me until I poured some water in here, and it basically covered the sponge material right up. So I had to drain quite a bit of it out before I could put on the parchment paper. So, it threw me back. Uh, and like I said, I don't think it's a good or bad thing. It's just an observation. In fact, I still have a spare of both of these so you can see the dry ones and see the relative difference in thickness. Alright, so here's the Army Painter spare. So when you buy the wet palette, it has two of these, one of which you see in here, the other one of which I haven't opened yet. This is for my original wet palette. It isn't a brand name. It's just, those kind of pretend brands that show up on Amazon. They're kind of a Chinese company, and they're gone within a couple of months. So that's what I bought because I wasn't sure if a wet palette was going to be my bag of crumpets, I guess. So I'm going to open both of these. I hope I don't regret this. I hope it doesn't go bad, but I realize it's probably very difficult to tell the difference. So here's Army Painter. Here's No Name brand. Alright. Let's see if I can make this easier. Alright. So the No Name brand is here at the bottom. The Army Painter is here at the top. I'd say, it's not, the Army Painter is not quite half the thickness of the one I was using. It may be a bit over half, but it's, substantially, it's noticeably thinner. And so, given my limited experience with wet palettes and painting and all kinds of hobby-related stuff in general, I just thought it was an interesting observation. So if you're thinking about kind of upgrading, you started off with a cheapo, and you're thinking, you know what, maybe I'll spend a little bit of money. So the Army Painter wet palette isn't that expensive. It's not like those... there's a couple of Kickstarters and a couple of fancy stuff. They can go up to 30. I saw one for like $70. It was a Kickstarter project. That was a bit much. It looks really nice, but that was a bit much for my blood. Maybe after I'm done with this guy, I'll upgrade to one of those. So at any rate, just if you do decide to upgrade and choose the Army Painter wet palette, don't be surprised. I don't know if there's a standard thickness for these things for wet palettes. But it seems to me a bit on the thinner side. Not a negative comment, just an observation. I don't know yet whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. I did notice that my paints seem to dry quite a bit faster on this relative to my old one. My old one, I never had a problem with paints drying. I had a problem with, paints eventually, they get stale or whatever, and so they start separating on the wet palette, and then, you don't really want to use them because they give you pretty substandard results. By the way, this is horrible form, but it's an old crappy brush. I don't actually, care if this one lives or dies, but it's bad form. So I don't know if it's just I don't have enough water on here, or if that's the way wet palettes are supposed to work. This is also fairly more wrinkly than my old wet palette. That I'm not a fan of, but we'll see. I'm going to try to get used to this thing. I don't know how much water is supposed to be in a wet palette anyway. A little extra hydration. I don't want to add too much, because then that for sure will ruin my paints. So anyway, just an addendum. I thought I'd show you in case you're interested.